three things that every coach needs to know. Let's just dive right in. Here's the first one. The client is the expert. You're not the expert. The client is. Now, that may sound strange to you because there are so many people that are calling themselves coach who are not really coaches. They're consultants. Clearly, they're telling people what to do instead of asking questions to evoke new awareness in the client. Let me give you an example. A pretty famous financial guru was talking one day and he was saying, I love to coach businesses. It's one of my favorite things. I take their business, I rip it apart, and I put it back together for them. I love to coach. Well, there's no ripping in coaching. There's no ripping apart. I'm not the expert. They're the expert, and I want them to be the expert. I want them to continue to be the expert, even more of an expert of their situation, of their life. Here's the second thing every new coach needs to know. You want to do more asking than telling. So we're kind of wired to tell. We want to tell our idea. We want to give some input. We want to solve the problem, really. Lots of us just want to solve the problem for them. But that doesn't do the client as much good as asking, evoking awareness, helping them think. Let me give you an example. I had a client telling me that what they wanted to do during the coaching was develop a plan to develop their staff. Now, interestingly, here's a bad question. How many staff do you have? The only reason I would ask how many staff do you have is so that I can be the expert and tell them what I think they would do. Here's a much, much better question. What would be different about your staff after they've been developed for a year or two? See, I guarantee you the client hasn't necessarily thought about that. And a great way to know whether you're asking good questions or not is that the client will often say, that's a great question. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. That's exactly the mode we want our client in. We want them to be thinking about that. The third thing every new coach needs to know, make helpful observations. You're a second set of eyes for your client. They really honestly don't see everything. I think back to probably the greatest golfer who's ever lived, Tiger Woods. Interesting, right? Tiger Woods had a coach. And did he have a coach who was the expert at golf? No. Tiger Woods is the expert at golf. What the coach did for Tiger Woods is gave him a second set of eyes. The coach could see things that Tiger couldn't, mainly because his eyes are on the front of his head in a specific perspective. But the coach could actually move around and see the client, see Tiger Woods from many different views, many different perspectives. So you're making helpful observations. Here's a helpful observation that I often make in coaching. The client says one thing and then says something that seems very different. And I make the observation, those two things don't usually go together. Now, the client may say, but in this case, I can see how they could. I think it's essential that they do. Or they could say, oh, that's true. I need to pick one or the other, don't I? So we make helpful observations so that the client can then have even more awareness about their situation. Every new coach needs to know that coaching is a partnership where I come alongside the client and I am their partner. I don't take over. I'm not the expert. I try to show up very curious to help them think more deeply. And I'm really present, listening very carefully, trying to hear some things or see some things that might be helpful to them if they become aware of it. Those are the three things that every new coach needs to know. Be sure and subscribe so you don't miss any of our great content.